so much for that. Countdown.
One of these. Is it count? Oh, we're live. We're live on that one. So one of these podcasts, we're live. Well, anyway, welcome to our podcast. This is our Sunday podcast with special guests. First of all, we have our associate combined producer here, Fred Shuffler. We have Jack Overfield, all the way down from College Station, and he's got this shirt on.
Yeah.
I don't know. He must have
Which way do I look?
over there's the camera.
Go Coot! Now I'm going to come back to the Behind the Scope LLC.
There we go. Thank you, Jack.
All right.
And then we have Tony Sanchez, another former manager at the FAA Houston Center, and was in the training department. Over here, to my immediate left, we have Jerry Strickland, 510 manager, former FAA operations manager, former supervisor, controller extraordinaire, and then you have myself, former ops manager, supervisor, TMC, and all the other stuff that goes along with it. So welcome to our podcast. And for all those that are subscribing to our podcast out there, thank you so much. We're about to hit 34,000 subscribers. That is fantastic. That means you guys like the show and you like what we're doing. Well, having said all that, our discussion today is going to be surrounding what's going on in our minds, in our best guests, educated guests, because we have about 170 years of FAA experience in this room. What's going on with the training from what we see? Now, I watched a video last week that was talking about, one individual was talking about how he's been in the FAA since 2005, and he hasn't seen anything change in the training department, and he thinks that training is going just fine. Well, I got to tell you, I thoroughly disagree with him because he's not speaking from a historic standpoint. Before he came in the agency and got checked out, we actually had a training program that provided direct training and tested an individual's skill set, okay? And now we're starting to get into the right solid ground. Skill set versus training. Good training with somebody that has a good skill set will equal a checked out controller. We have some individuals that probably don't have the right skill set, and no matter how much you train them, they're never really going to approach what is a fully qualified FPL under this particular training program because of the prior selection process. And due to that, those people that have trained and don't have the full tool set with their skill set are training other new employees, and now you can see the results in the news broadcasts that are happening today. I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to go around the room if anybody has something that they want to talk about. Jerry over here. We're gonna hold off on Jerry. He's ready to rock and roll. I think I'll throw it over to we'll throw it over to Jack from Houston, former manager at Houston Center, and we'll talk about how he fixes stuff. And that's what's on that hat, how I fix stuff. Jack, do you have any input on this?
Well, how do I fix stuff? Well, you got to know what's broken
That's right.
first. And I was watching a podcast, a live podcast from about 3 weeks ago, and Jerry said some things because I rewatched it. It's 37 minutes long, and there were some things that really stuck in my head that you said, man, that's what we got to do. And you said we need to get people have the right aptitude, and we need to have a program that we train these people and make sure we document it, because you talked about some documentation issues from earlier days back in the 60s. And if you don't document things, you can't really make sure the person's learning and progressing as they should be. And so I think that the evaluation sheets that we do for OJT, they're also the same sheet that we use for over the shoulders. Controllers get 2 over shoulders minimum a year. And that's when the supervisor stands behind the controller and observes them, and they document. And you got to document what they're doing.
But do we do that today?
Well, you know what?
Well, I don't know, but we also do a tape talk with each one of them.
Oh yeah, and the tape talks too, where we record. All the air to ground transmissions and radios are recorded, and the supervisor can get a segment and listen to it, and then write up an evaluation, and then the controller listens to that. But Anyway, I think the key is making sure we look at people objectively, write down what they do that's correct as far as coordination, phraseology, judgment, all those things that are on the sheet. And I'm guessing the sheet is pretty much the same, if not exactly the same. And once you show people, hey, I'm watching what you do, and I'm observing things that you're doing correctly, you can approach things that they're doing incorrectly and make little observations and communicate that to the employee, and they'll be, well, hey, I'm going to change, because now that you want to get buy-in. So I think that's a real key. I really do, because I'll give you an example. If you listen to some of these YouTube channels that have ATC stuff going on, there's a lot of them where they actually have the actual air-to-ground communications between the facility, the air traffic control, and the pods. And I hear this a lot on them. A Delta 216, climb and maintain 12,000. Well, the phraseology is Delta 216, climb and maintain 12,000, 12,000. And so people are cutting corners, and at least in that, I see that as one thing. But anyway, so to me, that's over-the-shoulder evaluation stuff that should be corrected, because I can see how somebody could get mixed up when you say 1,200, and they're maybe thinking 12. It could get confusing. And that's only used below flight level 180. You don't use that stuff. You don't say climb, maintain flight level 180, 18,000. It's just for altitudes below flight level. So anyway, that's what I think right now. And I've got some other stuff that'll maybe come back to my memory. But
so what I would think that if we had I don't have any issue with what you're talking about, but that's 12, 14 steps down the ladder, in my opinion. I think the entire culture of the FAA over the last 20 years, from what I watch and see, and I'm basing it on data off their own daggum website that says that the average number of loss of separation in en route segment was 1,276 or something like that. The average for like 4 years in a row, from 2018 to 2022. 2023, it went down to 1,061, and they were just happy as hell. Now think about that for a moment, guys. 1,061 loss of separation in the en route segment. That is 2 airplanes with less than standard separation. Now, it could have been 4.8, it could have been a half mile, I don't know. It could have been 600 feet, it could have been 1,000 feet, I don't know. But what I'm saying, it was classified as loss of separation. Who in the hell is satisfied? And in the same data box, on their own stats, they talk about 100 and some thousand incursions, runway incursions in 1 year. What the hell are we proud about? Here's where I go back. When we talk about right now, they're whining about losses, inadequate staffing, 10,500
versus 14,500.
versus 14,500. They're about 3,000 short, 4,000 short.
right.
So how did we get 4,000 short? To me, it's fairly simple. I go back and look at when we started when I started in 60, it was up route. And I'm telling you, I got 40 hours in the first section. I had like 48, and they gave me a over the shoulder, and I passed. I don't recall anybody, and I ran the damn training department for 8 years. I don't recall anywhere where we gave a guy 100 plus hours. Here's why I disagree. And I do believe I know what that was. And I'm going to talk open. We started hiring, we were using the aptitude test, but we dropped down the scores to pick up minorities and brought them in. And I've talked to a couple of these guys that were hired, and their number wasn't in the 95, 98 range. And they got hired. Now, here's my logic about this. If I take a person, and this follows into the DEI later on, if you take a person that doesn't have an aptitude for the job, I'm going to hire, this guy doesn't have any arms, we're going to train him to use his feet to hammer nails for us. Okay, that's what we're going to do. That's DEI. You take a guy with the arms, he's got that, and he's also going to add 2 and 2 and read a ruler. If we get the right people and you train, here's what I'd like to do. If I was running the FAA right now, every employee that's never had an aptitude test would get one. And they would be rated and ranked on that. Then I'd go back at all the data we have available. I would look at aptitude test hiring versus CTI hiring versus DEI versus affirmative action. I want to know how many hours I had to spend in dollars and cents to train an affirmative action appointee, selectee, reference a CTI, and I think we would find, honestly, in the DEI hiring and the affirmative action hiring, we're going to find some of them that were great controllers and good employees. Excellent, worked out great. But I think overall, we're going to find that we spent hundreds of millions of dollars training people where I read now, and I'm, like the fellow in Seattle has talked to me a couple of times, he says that it's 100 to 200 hours on the first sector,
Yeah. You know what you said?
That's a full year of OJT, at least 3 hours a day.
And I think that would be an excellent test to see where that money was spent. And it would go back to what I was saying about those skill sets. Do these individuals lack the skill set to be able to at least separate airplanes? I can go, and I'm probably being a little bit out there with this, but I can take a drive with somebody from here down to, let's say, Galveston in traffic, and I can tell whether that person would be a good air traffic controller or not. What would I base that on? I would base that on their awareness of everybody around them. I base it on, are they pulling in and speeding up, or are they pulling in and getting up to speed? Do they already have the location picked out where they're going to be, 5 miles down the road? Are they looking all the way down? I mean, these are the things that controllers do. Controllers look way ahead. They have 3 or 4 different plans in place even before they open their mouth to give a clearance. And when you're driving, I see drivers the same way. If you got a good, excellent driver that pulls into traffic, the person behind them doesn't have to hit the brake, they can maneuver around. Nobody is getting in their way because they've already found the route to get around it.
A side of knowledge on that.
That's
How many air traffic controllers do you know that have had accidents? It's pretty damn rare.
I think, yeah.
Because we're doing this. We're left, right, 360, 6 o'clock, 12 o'clock, left, right, speedometer, left, right. You don't do anything. And it's just the same way on the
I know-
sector.
How many times does someone turn to you when you're driving and say, well, you didn't even look over there? I said,
Yeah.
I already know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great example of driving. As a matter of fact, I was thinking about something today or yesterday that
It didn't hurt, Jack, did it?
I know it hurt bad. I'm pretty sure all 5 of us sitting here could go in and sit down with a headset and watch traffic being worked anywhere in the United States, and we could have a good idea. Hey, this person's got it, and there's something missing here. And now let me throw this out, Jerry. To get that baseline that you were talking about, an aptitude test, I say bring back the old ARCO style test. It would be interesting to see everybody take it and see how they did, and then compare that with their performance that they're doing currently.
Well, the FAA has come up with a program that, I can't remember who it was visiting the academy. And they looked at the different students in there and they identified some that seemed to have a better aptitude towards it. And they come up with this aptitude test. It's a time thing. It's not very much time. It's a sequential aspect of it. It's a mental adding, subtracting, multiplying, things like that. Which is part of what we had with the ARCO testing. Okay, and that's what they're saying. They said they identified these people who they felt would be more productive sooner as controllers. Okay, and they're giving them, and they found that was the case. Given this, those that did well on this aptitude test, I'm not sure how many different layers there were to it, okay? But they found those people to be more suitable to be air traffic controllers. They picked up the information, they picked up the skills more quickly, okay?
That's what I was talking about a minute ago. Remember we talked about an aptitude guy versus a DEI versus a affirmative action. All right, let's just, for grins. I think we all checked out CTI grads. I think I've seen them. There was probably 8 or 10 that came into Houston Center. They weren't slow. They did well. No.
Well, my experience with CTI, I've had experiences with the students from Embry-Riddle. I've had experience with students from North Dakota State, I think it is, okay? The North Dakota State students, I'm not sure what it was about them, but they came in, they had an open mind. They knew they'd learned something in air traffic control, but they knew that they didn't understand the facility operation, and that's what they're focusing on. Not air traffic control in general, but what can I learn? What can this instructor give me to help me become a controller more quickly in this sector, in this specialty? Okay, so they had that, and I've had some good result with them.
Let me follow on that, because that was the point I was trying to make a while ago about you said their aptitude. We quickly train them. We get them trained better. The agency is 5,000 behind or 4,000 behind on trainees qualifying, right? So they've got at least 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 in training, right? Yeah. What if just all of a sudden you put in an incentive and a disincentive that said you get 60 hours and that's it. Once you hit 60 hours, you get a check ride by 2 suits, and if you pass, you're certified. If you don't pass, you're out. Creates an incentive for it and a disincentive. It also shortens the 100 to 200 to 300 hours of training that we get. Now, I know we all know that what I heard was we got people that train their entire careers from 1998 to 2000. Their entire career, they trained.
That's not false.
In a facility and never fully certified in a facility. Went from facility to facility to facility.
Be interesting to have a number.
6,000 man backlog right now. If cut off, I think I told you about it a month ago. I said if it was me, I'm running the FAA. We take the DEI test. Everybody takes it. Effective immediately. Unions sit down. I don't want to hear nothing from you. If I do, I'll talk to Mr. Trump about getting you decertified. We're going to certify. Anybody that's got 100 hours of OJT on a position that has not certified would be given a check ride. If they pass it, they do. If they don't pass it, they get an additional 8 hours, and that's it. They're out. If I got to train a person for over 100 hours on a sector, I wind up with a person that's minimally qualified.
So if we set the expectation up to be 100, and the individual knows that it's 100, why would we even venture into the additional 8 hours?
You could.
I think that is a slippery slope, because if you don't get 1-to-1,
the point would be let's get a cutoff on this.
Yes.
You don't get to train 300 hours. I don't want to. If a person has to train for 300 hours to work a radar with 7 or 8, 10 airplanes, I don't ever want to trust him at anything. I ain't going to trust him. Yeah. And every one of us know. Every one of us has worked with controllers that, okay, I got a 1 or 2 or 5, and here's a 7.
One of the things I think that contributes to these large amounts of hours of training is that when we were training, we had assigned an instructor to us. That's who we got taught by, no matter what. Okay. Nowadays, it seems that today, or in the recent past, that if a student felt that they weren't getting any benefit from that instructor, they went to management, and management changed the instructor. So now, okay, all the hours that were expended up to that point in time, some of them were given back. So now you get more hours. You get an increase in numbers of hours, because now we have to go back with this new instructor and see what they train for.
See, therein lies the problem, right? You get a trainee to your crew, right? And you're the supervisor, Jack, or you're the ops manager. The ops manager and the supervisor have a little discussion. Hey, you got this new trainee coming in. Who do you think is best qualified to work with this individual? You go to meet the trainee, so you can kind of get an idea of his personality and how his training has been, right? Was he really fast through the problems? Was she really good at what she was doing? So you get this feel, you talk to the trainee, you have an idea of where her head is at or his head is at. Then you apply that to who's on your crew. Who's on the person's crew that this person's going to? Are they going to be a good match for this person or not, right? So you've made all those decisions. You assign that instructor to this trainee, and yes, that's the way it should be. You, as a supervisor, are monitoring the situation to make sure your pairing is good, so you don't have this issue down the road. Oh, they're not getting along. No, you're not getting along because you're not succeeding in training, and it has nothing to do with the relationship you have with your instructor. It has everything to do with your ability to operate the sector. That's where we make the mistake, right there.
The
They go
unfortunate-
up and they say, I can't get along, and they go cry to whoever they're gonna cry to, either EEO grievance and then they get a change and they get more hours, right? Oh, I had 28 hours, or I had 90, 80 hours. I need to get them all back because it was done under disparate.
But subsequently, what has happened is the union now gets involved in this individual. Okay, I'm not saying it's good, bad. I'm just saying that's how it starts. Okay. Now the thing
And
about
remember,
it
their
is,
career, most of the time, they're career conditional. So if they haven't been employed for, 3 years or 2 years? Is that the mark? I think that's the mark.
it's 3 years.
3 years, they can be fired under anything.
Oh, by the-
Probationary for 1 year, but
Oh,
career conditional for 3. Okay.
Fred,
Or
you were gonna
was.
say something?
Yeah, the power of the union. I haven't heard anything mentioned.
Go get there.
Hey, by the way, before I forget, they do get 15% differential for OJT. I found that online.
So, yeah, so,
So anyway, the point I'm trying to get is now before we're talking about it being between the supervisor and the instructor. Now there's a third party involved in it. Okay. And maybe even a fourth party in the sense that maybe the operational manager gets involved, operational manager especially. So now you got 4 people involved in this one individual.
I think the OM should be involved all the time in that training's progress and should be looking over that information.
It should be looking
Getting
over.
feedback
Should be
from
looking
that
over.
supervisor.
Okay.
Sure,
And that supervisor should be communicating to
Sure,
that OM.
sure,
The door should always be open.
Sure.
My point is though
See,
that
I
now you got
disagree.
No,
I just.
you're not micromanaging, you're the 1 minute manager. You go, hey, train this person, off they go, but you gotta continually touch base to see if everything is copacetic, because later on down the road, what's gonna happen? The union's gonna come to the OM, where were you in this training process? Why didn't you know?
I would like to have a conversation with a retired union rep. If it's the president, if it's just an area rep, whatever. But to see where their mindset is. Because they're going out defending these controllers,
And that's their job, because they get paid
Yes.
dues.
but how they see this poor person being discriminated against, or, and again, but this is the part of the equation that changes the training.
Yeah, it changed because
It's
we
true, it's
allowed
what it
too
is
many
though.
minor things to
But-
change the program outside the expectations of what was assigned at the beginning. That's the problem.
But Fred brings up something that's very key: perceptions.
Uh-huh.
Okay,
Oh.
everybody's going to have that. Okay, and it depends on how strong the argument you make based on your perception. How it's going to affect the outcome. So, Fred brings about the union coming in. Yeah, we mentioned there was a perception. Yes, that's true. But again, the instructor, there's a perception on the instructor's perspective. There's also from the student. Okay.
But Tony, what I'm saying is it's not so much a matter of perspective. It's a matter of perception. It's a matter of expectation. You've got these requirements. They're in a box.
Sure.
Once you've changed one part of that box, guess what? That changes it for everybody. You
I-
can't say this is no. You cannot say that this person has a special circumstance.
Yeah.
Well, why isn't my circumstance
You
special?
set a
You
new
don't like me.
precedent.
I
Is
don't
it my
disagree with
age?
you.
Is it my sex? Is it my color? I mean,
Yeah.
because anything happens. For me,
Yeah.
Never mind. I'm
No,
just saying, you've got to stay inside the expectation. And when you have all these
Right.
The
supervisors
point you
and they're all wanting
Yeah.
to be managers, but they have to be out there all day long, right? And they kind of want to have that friendship, but you can only go so
Yeah.
far with a friendship, right? Or else you step over the line.
That's true.
They'll be looking at you
Now
as
you
favoritism.
made a comment earlier about the fact that it shouldn't be about perception. It should be about the
The
aptitude,
standards.
The
the
standards,
standards.
yes, you
Okay,
have to stay within the requirements.
Yeah.
and the arguments that are presented, I'm assuming, I've seen, depends on who has a stronger argument, who can make the strongest argument for. You can take the actual fact of how the student is doing, okay, and you have historical data behind you if the training sheets were done correctly, but they're not always done correctly. Sometimes they had a good day, okay. That's how the
Yeah, I know.
students,
What is
how do you
happening?
deal with that when you're saying, okay, this
They
student.
shouldn't have been on the sector because there was no traffic.
Well,
officer.
first of all,
You gotta
yeah,
have
that's the other
something
thing
to
too.
say.
But that's the thing about it, that's between the perception of the individual instructor
Yeah.
and what their opinion is of this individual or the training program itself.
Well, if they're going by the standards, their perception should be objective.
Should be.
Okay, now,
Don't argue with that.
we have the annual performance evaluation rating, and that's got all the standards and requirements. We have an OJT team, which is the OJT trainee, the primary OJT instructor. You could have, and usually we had a secondary
Yes.
instructor, and then the supervisor, the first line supervisor. And so everybody's got to get on the same page. Now, we talk about what I think Jerry said something at the very beginning of this today's live podcast about management doesn't seem to know what's fully going on in certain places. Management has to be evaluated too, and they have to know what the standard is.
The Peter principle.
Well, yeah, we can think about the DCA airport and the fact that they had all these close calls with helicopters and commercial aircraft over how many years was it, Jerry? 4 to 8 years they had some.
15,200 in 2 years.
How many?
15,200 in 2 years.
So why wasn't anything done? So I'm saying this: management, frontline, I think they're called frontline supervisors. They used to, and that brings up another point. Are they being evaluated and being coached and brought into the standard? Now, I'm going to say something right now before I forget it, because I Googled how many agencies in the federal government have titles like president, vice president, CEO, and I couldn't find any. Like they have secretaries, undersecretaries, Department of State, that kind of thing. I don't know if they still have, like in the FBI, division managers and things like that, but the FAA has gone to president, vice president this, vice president that, CEO. And I'm thinking, my gosh, what are we all concerned about here? Some kind of title? And I know that sounds a little bit outlandish, but I think back when we came in the FAA, we had area supervisors, you supervise, area managers, they get what the people need to succeed, right, Jerry? You said that. And area supervisors are supposed to do that too. And where they need to succeed, they need to know what the standard is. They need to know what's required, what the expectations are, and then go by the letter of those standards that are laid out.
Yeah.
Let me go back to mine. I totally disagree.
What?
I totally disagree.
What I just said?
This,
What were our discussions so far?
this feelings crap.
Have I mentioned feelings?
Feelings about, here, let me tell you what. Here's my logic. You guys are working for me, all 3 area suits. You know your damn jobs.
Yeah, right.
You get it done.
Right.
Now you tell me what you need to get it done, but you're gonna get it done. I'm gonna hold you accountable.
Right.
So what are we talking about feelings? I don't care if you feel, I don't care. We are talking about killing people in airplanes. I don't give a crap about your feelings, controller. I don't give a crap about your feelings, trainee. You get the job done.
Right.
This is not poor baby.
Right.
That's what the hell's wrong in the agency right now.
Exactly, Jerry.
But you're talking to us right now, Jared, because we have the same.
I know.
Hold on.
We're talking
We have the
about how
same
we would-
perspective that you do about fees. Now, somebody else at another level that presents this, that has that argument on their side, and they're able to influence.
All we did, we changed
Sure.
from military, which was get it done in the 60s up until 81, 82, 83. Then we changed slightly into, come on guys, let's get the job done. Till we're terrified of a female making a complaint about us. Well, he was mean to me. He said bad things to me. He didn't like me. What the hell has this got to do with separating airplanes? Nothing. You know, we need to change the entire culture of the FAA. And I think it permeates every level. I heard a story.
I think you're right, Jerry. Tell me that story.
I heard a guy talking on his cell phone while he's controlling an airplane.
Whoa.
3 separate times he was told, no, can't do that, can't do that. He whined to the boss. The boss tells him, you're too tough on him. You're too tough on him.
There you go.
That's a second or third level guy.
There you go.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm telling you. It permeates the entire agency. This thing to go back to the merit thing that says everybody takes this damn thing. If I had my way about it, I'm Jerry Strickland. I'm running the FAA right now. Guess what? I'm going to go through the agency and I'm going to remove about 35 or 40% of every supervisor and manager in the agency. They're out. They're gone. I don't believe in a supervisor per special sector. I mean, a team.
Right.
I don't believe in that. I believe that there probably should be 4 supervisors per specialty. And an area manager ought to have at least 2 or 3 specialties. There shouldn't be 7 staff managers. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have 5 air traffic controllers in staff offices. It wastes money.
Right.
That was tried, Jerry. That was tried. Where they combined 2 specialties. Okay. And you had 14 supervisors. Okay. They said they only need like 10. Okay. What do the other 4 people? They put them in different offices or whatever. Now, was that correct or incorrect? I don't know. Okay.
And
But
No, that was
lies
my
the problem.
program.
But-
I designed that damn program. The Houston plan was mine.
Was it yours?
Me
Okay.
and
That's
Dave
why it
Frank
didn't work.
thought that.
Right. No.
And it was not we were going to reduce down from 42 to 32
Yes.
immediately. But we also wanted the region to get out of it. We wanted the center manager to have a budget. And he was in charge of his damn budget.
But the point I'm trying,
Yeah.
go
And the
ahead.
thing was, these plans would have worked.
No
It
doubt.
goes back to the supervisors. There are supervisors out there that are already laying traps for you to fail in that situation. And the way it starts is, well, they're always in the office and I'm out here and I got to work this. And, they're getting their weekends off. So they start to undermine the system. Meanwhile, they're not doing their job other than assign. You should be able to go in and tell anybody in that facility as a manager what they can do, what they need to do, because it's in their either contract or whatever document you signed to be hired by the agency. I can tell you to do that, and that's your job because you don't have anything else to do. Doesn't mean you get to go sit down on your butt all day, right? You get to do something else. But you can't have that because the managers and the supervisors don't stay on the same page and they don't lock it down to do exactly as they designed.
We're all saying
And
the
they
same
get
thing.
outside
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and
There's
start
no
changing.
accountability.
Yeah. Exactly.
There's no accountability.
Exactly.
Let's just real quick, if there was accountability, the manager and the regional manager and of DCA and every manager in that facility would have been fired 2 years ago. Should have been put on the street. They killed 70 people, whatever that midder was. They killed them because they didn't do a damn thing about.
Exactly.
Now, maybe it was Department of Defense giving them all kinds of pressure. We need to move these helicopters. Well, tell you what, General, you take your freaking helicopter and you go straight away from the airport at 2,000 feet or 200 feet until you're 15 miles away from here. And then you go up to 400 feet. I don't care where but you're not going to go under the approach lanes. How stupid was that?
Right.
Yeah, and
Stupid.
we had at Ellington, we had one guy that was a Washington or a Reagan,
Tower
Control.
control.
and he said that helicopter was outside of where he should have been. Now, why didn't that controller know that? He was on the other side of where he should. How could you not know that? That's your airspace.
I didn't read that in the NTSB.
Well,
And I looked at their diagrams
I
overall. I
didn't-
didn't read that.
That guy was also higher than he was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Well, as far as we know, yeah, but we
I'm
don't
sorry.
know if his altimeter was incorrect.
It was like 117 feet high.
Let me ask that question though. Does visual separation improve? What does that entitle you to do?
Go direct.
What does it entitle you to do?
It entitles you to see the traffic that you're going to visually separate yourself from.
Can I climb to separate myself because I'm gonna hit him
You could, sure you could.
out of my box?
Well, now if you have a box,
Think about it.
you can't.
I'm thinking,
Right.
did this guy know? What was he, a pilot in command, was a chief warrant officer, but the dude flying the airplane was a
Captain.
or something, just getting his checkup,
Northern Shawnee check, right?
Does
Yes.
visual separation
Training.
allow me to climb out of their 200 box?
Well,
Well, any emergency situation is going to allow you to do whatever. As a pilot in command, you can take it. All you kind of
So we go back to the same thing out there we've all talked about. It should never have
You should
happened.
not.
sure.
Should never have happened.
Sure. Reagan Tower, control tower managers should have taken the data they had and said, hey, what's going on here, and figured it out. Exactly what
2
you're
years
saying.
ago.
Oh, definitely. 4 years ago. So they're not, so whoever's managing those folks, they're not following up.
That's right.
They're not following up. And
Where was the union here?
How many times did this happen and they didn't take an action to change it? Where they just, okay, we'll just train
Right,
so people
right.
know that this
Right,
happened.
right.
No, if it's happened 3 or 4 times, the training is not gonna work because this is not a good procedure. Change the procedure.
It put a lot of pressure on pilots that were, and general aviation didn't know a damn thing about it. The Department of Defense put a tremendous amount of pressure and liability on the helicopter pilots by designing that kind of a totally ignorant program to let them fly at 200 feet under the arrivals and all this stuff, when the arrivals are descending down across the top.
Well,
To the ground.
Yeah. Now, I think, Jerry, you just said the pilots don't know, like general aviation stuff. I remember Don Holt, who is a retired air traffic controller. He's been on the channel talking about his experiences, and he's got 20,000 hours of piloting command, and most of those are turbojets. He said when he had people flying for him, he told them, don't you ever take a circling approach to runway 33 at Reagan Airport. Don't you ever take it. You go to runway 01. Don't go to, and so. But then, oh yeah, Don says, yeah. And of course, the pilot of the other aircraft say, yeah, we can take the circling because they're trying to accommodate. And I'm trying to think, well, golly, if you're coming into runway 1 and now you're going to circle the 33, really, how much are you going to really gain there? Because you're going to end up crossing runway 01 anyway, which is going to be somebody coming in behind you.
Yeah, it's gotta be, the controller was thinking that he was gonna gain
Sure.
ability to compress more airplanes
Sure.
into his airspace by doing the
Exactly.
circle.
Sure.
But like he said, or like Don said, the pilot, when he said, yes, I'll do that, put a whole lot of stuff on his co-pilot, because now we gotta look at what runway configuration, do I have to dial in the ILS, They had to figure out all the information for the next runway, which took his eyes out of the windscreen for looking for any kind of traffic.
Sure.
It's at night, you got all these lights out there, and you're right, you should never, Don is right, you shouldn't have taken that circle.
And if you look,
But would have, should have, could have,
I
right?
know, and in that preliminary report that the NTSB released March 11th, I think it was, it's 20 pages long, and on one of the pages they have a graphic of where they were when the traffic was issued to the helicopter crew. They were 6.5 miles apart,
9.4.
and well, you said 9.4.
9.4 miles. The first traffic was 9.4 miles. The Pat 25 was north of the airport up here. The CJR was down there, 9.4 miles apart. And he said, do you see the CJR?
Well, Jerry,
6 point something
the
miles.
report says they were 6.5
6
miles.
miles. He'd already curved around. That was
Yeah,
when he issued traffic. talked about
And he
it.
said, the pilot said, got him inside requesting visual separation.
Yeah.
Now, the way I looked at those routes in that preliminary report, figure 1 or whatever it is, figure 2, the traffic was basically right out the right side of the right seat. That's 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
And 6.5 miles coming across a bridge. And now,
I disagree. I believe if you looked at this, the map that they had up here, the Pat 25 was up here. He came across. He was due almost eastbound, say 90 or 100 degrees, when he issued traffic to an airplane down here coming in 1. All right, and then that guy broke off to circle over here. So the Pat goes around the river like this, and when they issued that traffic, the Pat was up here like this. It was a 1 o'clock to the CJR, 1 to 2 o'clock to the CJR, and 10 to 11 o'clock on the Pat 25 at that time.
you're talking about when they're like
They were
30 seconds apart?
No, 6.4 miles is when I saw it. All right, and at 4 point something miles, it was just basically it was still, the point I'm trying to make, it was like this.
Sure.
Here we got like this.
Sure.
Which direction are you going to tell him to turn?
Yeah.
You can't, because if you turn him this way, you hit him. If you turn him that way, he hits you.
Right.
So yeah, it was, if the traffic had been, you wrote a great thing, I saw that. If the correct traffic advisories had been issued using the clock position and distance instead of do you see the CJR? What the hell does that mean?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Oh, it aggravates me.
Well,
Now see it on that diagram there, the
Runway
Pat
configuration.
25 was up on the north end of 1, all right? And he comes around the river like this. and this guy had broke off that to 3-3. So he was coming in, now he goes around and comes up. That thing you're talking about, NTSB said they actually saw each other and started to take evasive action with like 17 seconds, something like that.
Yeah.
And that 6 seconds prior to it, one of them had deflected up and the chopper had gone up and left like 6 degrees and the CJR had gone up and left like 9-degree deflection. So it was, yeah, both of them hooked left.
Well, now, before I forget this, because Jerry, you said something about, I forget what sparked this thought, but if you look at that NTSB preliminary report on the last page, page 20, they have a list of the people that are on this investigation and
Yeah.
were responsible for putting this report together. And there's only one air traffic controller on that,
The union rep.
and that's an actor rep. And I'm thinking, okay. Now, there was a senator during a hearing on TV, it was like the 27th of March, I believe, that jumped on the Army general because they didn't have ADSB out.
Didn't have
In other words, they're not sending out their information where other aircraft can pick it up that have ADSB in, okay? So that's certainly something to look at, but the first person that realized, or the first party that knew that there were converging courses was the control tower. And that's always the case because that's our job as air traffic controllers, right? First duty priority, separate airplanes and issue safety advisories. Okay. So
But they didn't.
well, they did have, the controller knew they were on, the control tower realized they were on converging courses because they've probably seen this a number of times before. You got somebody circling, they're going to come around, they're going to cross. And so the pilots have seen that too, the Army pilots, and they say, yeah, well, we know what works here is visual separation. And you may not, I talked with one of our helicopter pilot friends that flew in Afghanistan, and
Daniel Flores.
yes, and sometimes pilots will bet on the come. I believe I'm going to see them. They're coming. I'm going to see them, but they may not see them right then. But I'm betting I'm going to see them because I know when I turn, I'm going to see them. But anyway, it was certainly a tragedy.
Well, you think when he's going to that runway, he's taking runway 1, he's here, he turns this way, and now he's in a bank, he's turning to line up with 3-3. So his right wing is up, his windshield is the bottom of him is being blocked. He's not going to see that helicopter underneath him either. The pilot's not going to see him. And the co-pilot who sits on the right side is busy. He doesn't have his head outside the airplane. He's in there trying to figure out all the proper landing settings for
Right.
this new runway that he's going to be on,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Weights and measures and all. So when that wing dips down, I think that's the first time they saw that helicopter in real life. And that's when that helicopter, that light came down, and probably his landing light hit him because he had on, what I understand, he had night vision goggles on at the time too. And that just blinded him, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And that's when they ran.
Well, and
That's my,
And even when you issue traffic advisory on convert and one that accepts visual separation, if it appears the targets are going to merge, you still have to tell them it appears targets will merge. And that gives both pilots increase their situational awareness, right? Hey, okay, we're going to merge. We really need to pay some extra vigilance out here.
Were they given that?
Well, I don't know. I
didn't
I
see
haven't heard it on any recordings, but
We're
They didn't-
all beating around the bush about the same thing.
right. They didn't mention it in the preliminary report, so I'm sure they've heard all the air to ground communications. But anyway,
We have an incredibly dangerous situation that was allowed to take place for over 2 years.
that's right. And that's
And
management.
the controllers in the tower became rather, in my opinion, they became unconcerned with it. It happened when it was 15,200 times now, or maybe it was 12,000.
So I wrote to them.
How many times a day does that happen in 2 years? You got 700 days there, and you got, where does this crap's going on?
Uh-huh.
50, 100 times a day.
Yeah.
And we became, as controllers, we become totally oblivious to the hell. This is normal stuff. They get it.
Yeah.
They damn near get every hour.
Yeah.
So we're not concerned about it anymore.
Yeah,
There was no, I didn't hear any elevation in the controller's voice. I didn't hear any urgency. I didn't hear any tone change. It was, okay, you guys better figure it out. I'm going.
well,
Well, there's an attitude that needs to be addressed in that situation.
I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that to me, this wasn't the controller's.
it's advantage, it starts at the top.
I got
Yes.
here.
And
That's
that's why I
That's
want to go
right.
back to the training process,
Right.
okay? And that's where it all started from.
Right.
Okay, somewhere along there, the individuals that run that facility and those people that are working those
Right.
positions have been made to feel comfortable to be in a situation that allows two planes to get that close to each other, and they're thinking everything's going to be okay, even though the past has shown that they've had near misses. Why was that not addressed?
Well,
And that should have been done way back in
Oh,
training.
shoot, yeah.
And it should have been fixed then.
That's
but it was
right.
allowed to continue numerous times. And it also goes along with, and I'm gonna bring this up, when you're able to self-identify that you had an operational error, and then you got a get out of jail free card, and you don't get any training, you don't get a slap on, you get no accountability, right?
Yeah.
And what happens to the individual that does get caught and doesn't identify? They get off for 1 to 2 weeks. They get all the training that goes along with it.
Does that
So-
happen?
Well, I don't know. It did when I was an ops
That's what
manager.
I'm saying.
Okay, so you have one person self-identify. Magically, they in their mind have been fixed for their error, and who knows how many other mistakes they're making. Two, they don't identify, and they have to go through all the training program. And when they do go through, maybe there's some other issues that individual has that gets addressed, and they get better training. So this one over here gets a get out of jail free card, no fix on his training or her training. This one here gets.
But that's how that program's set up. That program is ATSAP, ATSAP.
That's right.
And
But-
there's agreement between the union and the agency. And what they're looking for was what was the reason for the problem? And they were trying to say, and it became the response to it, it's a systemic problem. It's not an individual problem. Okay? Systemic problem being, like you got the routes out there at DCA, you got this operation where you got this runway, which if aircraft gets issued that runway to land on, and they have helicopters out there, you're going to run into this problem.
Well,
But the problem
Right.
again goes back, like I'm saying, it's systemic. Where when Jerry and I and you, we were all involved, you have an error, it goes on your record for 3 years. You have another one in 3 years, you're out. Okay,
I thought it was 3 strikes. Is it 2?
it used to be 2.
I thought it was.
It used to be 2.
I don't know.
But anyway,
It's me too.
there's something there. But what I'm saying, yeah, it's a systemic problem, but it still needs to be fixed, and that individual has to be retrained rather than just get a blank get out of jail free card. Because, like I say, they're making that error. What else is in their bag of tricks that's going to make more errors?
But that's always been the case, because when we had an error, okay, or an operational deviation, we had to go through some sort of training, some remedial training, okay, additional training, whatever you want to call it. And we had to go back and we had to prove ourselves or get another exam or whatever the case may be that we were doing okay. But nowadays, if you self-report, the way the program's set up, there's no responsibility on your part. Now, how many of these can you have? Well, I'm saying you can have X number of this one and this one and this one and
I
this
don't
one.
know. So
And
what's
you're
the magic
identifying-
there. How did that person get his skill back if he didn't have a skill in that area? He had the error.
He did, it was identified as him being, basically it was saying that he didn't have that.
Is
Oh,
back to
it's
that,
hocus pocus. You get back to going to the focus.
No matter what we say, we don't agree with it. It's that simple. None of us do, because if you report a system error, okay, and that's that program, there has to be a human factor in there somewhere.
Well-
And how is that identified, if any at all?
Factor in all the errors. In fact, it's a chain reaction. It's a chain of things.
And that's when, if you look at ATSAP, it talks about, it's a system issue.
What's that?
Air traffic safety aviation program.
But we're
Oh,
talking
okay.
about situations or repercussions that we were knowledgeable about 15 and 20 years ago. What is it now?
We don't know yet.
You know,
That we don't know.
how has it been
But I'm
changed?
sure, but something has obviously changed because the
Yeah.
error rate is indicating that there's a problem.
The vice president sitting on their hands some places, maybe.
Yeah.
I still say the management at Reagan Control Tower wasn't looking into these things and taking appropriate action. It's got to be.
I
Hey,
believe they folded to DOD pressure.
What about these two controllers that, got the blows on the
Oh.
position?
Uh,
Were they
Well,
part
one
of
is
the
arrested,
same?
one was put in
Arrested,
jail, right?
yeah.
And he has been,
I'm sure the union got him out.
well, probably, but.
he's talking about there's
He's
a
in
physical
charges.
fight. in the-
Yeah.
I was gonna hang a set of boxing gloves in here and I forgot.
But,
To show how
was
to
it,
solve
were they
problems.
part of the same crew that had
That I
that,
don't know.
that situation?
They
or
didn't
was it-
identify that. Fred.
It used to be, you don't care who's sitting next to you, if you have disagreement, when you're working traffic,
That's right.
Sure,
Well, that's how it's supposed to be, but
I
it's not
looked
always
that
that
guy's
way.
name up. There's a couple of websites like FBA, gov.pay or government paid salary.
130,000.
And you can plug it into there and it tells you, well, that particular person that told every facility he had been in, how long he'd been there, and he moved to the next.
Did it
It
start
showed
in
his
88?
pace, it went back to, he came in at 93, I think, is when he came in.
I think it said 17 years.
So,
Report.
he,
Really, it came in 93, that'd be 32 years, right?
No,
I may have been
Yeah.
03, I don't remember. I know he only had like 28 years or 25, whatever it is.
Yeah.
you think
So,
you'd be smart enough to know not to go to blows on the position? You gotta be pretty stupid to do that.
I don't know. That's not what I've heard in some cases.
Well, you gotta wonder what the supervisor's doing. And hey, by the way, to have a helicopter control position and the local control position combined since 3:40 in the afternoon, local time, 5 hours later, they had that tragic.
So,
How many guys, every damn one of us have worked 3 sectors. It's many hours.
specialty.
Okay, but Jerry, if they go back and look at that data, all that record of near passes, near misses, they missed, but it was near. They were near.
But-
How many of them were during hours of darkness?
How thick was the skin? They didn't care. It's just normal. This is an arrival. It was
Sure.
mid-airs there, near mid-airs became, well, I don't know, no problem.
Well, I think we've had a very good discussion,
Yeah.
and I think we should start wrapping it up.
Yeah.
So I just want to do one more thing. I had sent you guys a letter about when I was back in 2003, I think, as an operations manager. And I don't know if they still require the op manager to be in the control room making observations on different specialties.
Are they called op managers?
I don't even know if they're op managers anymore, but if they
Jerry,
are,
yeah.
do they get in the control room?
That situation you're talking about was when there were a number of operational errors on the rise in
But
the
there was
specialty.
also something
And
else
that
going
was-
on called LMR. We had to do labor management.
Yeah, that was part of it. That was part of it, right
Things.
there.
And I had said that those are gonna be an issue. And the day that I was in there, it actually was, because this one individual manager came up to me and he had asked me to help him settle an issue, and I did. I was able to do it.
The thing that was an issue with that for me was the distraction that it created. Because how often did you see the operation manager going in and being part of that specialty for a period of time?
The ops manager used to sit up there in the
That's-
control room,
that's
right up
what-
there on the deck, behind everybody. They had
Yeah.
view of everything.
And then that became the watch supervisor. I mean, watch manager, ops manager, who did that job. Okay, but yeah, that was a responsibility. But I'm
Remember
talking
when I
about
took over- When I took over Corpus, how many hours did I sit out there in the damn control room?
A lot.
Yeah.
That's the first thing that came to my mind. Hey, I remember
Somebody
somebody.
sit out there in the control room 4 days a week for 5 or 6 hours a day, sitting at a position talking to controllers. And within, we'd have 6, 7 deviations over the previous 18 months, something like that. We didn't have nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
I gotta say.
It depended on the individual.
If you're uncomfortable with your ops manager sitting out there in the control room, then obviously there's something wrong.
that was
agree.
it.
I agree.
That was the
I
idea.
agree.
Identify issues.
We did that. We did that.
Yes, we did. That's what I'm saying. But some it didn't always work out that way for everybody.
We
When you
formed
start-
probably the only work group ever in Houston Center history that had everybody in the specialty on it. everybody, team suits, everybody, A sides, D sides, had Billy Malden back in the back there in Data Systems. They went back there about what, 4 months, 5
Yeah.
months, and then we sent. Did you go to who went to
I
who went
think
down to Kingsville?
it wasn't me.
It was 2 or 3 suits went to Kingsville and to Navy Corpus and to Corpus and renegotiated letters of agreement. Come back and everybody was happy as hell. I thought we.
Yeah.
I know this basically became a happy place to work in.
Yeah.
You know? Well, you know, a couple.
And a
times.
smoother operation too.
So the whole point about, we're talking about this, I'll beat this drum. It angers me that we have, what, 150 years or 60 years of agency experience here, and we got a guy that can't even spell ATC is now running him. And people like us are sitting out here going, what in the hell are you doing? It worked. I don't ever remember Houston Center having more than like 8 or 9, 10 errors in a year, ever in history. And now when I'm looking at that data sheet, it's showing 23, 28, 16, 29 per year. An operational error deviation in the en route segment. How many mid errors a year are we averting right now?
And by the way, Jerry, when you brought that up in the beginning of this discussion, separation in certain areas in the en route environment is 3 miles because of ADSB
Yep.
out and ADSB in coming
See, I didn't
in.
even
So
know
you
that.
can, because you're getting an update every second on your display. And so some of those could be a lot closer than what you really think, you know. It's going from 5 miles down to 4 down to 3.
We're not
I'm saying
aware,
close, but
we're not aware of where the systems changed to, okay? How are they doing it now with the people there? We're talking about what we knew, what we experienced, but what the hell's going on now?
Whatever it is, it's,
Well, I mean, the guy that's at the top. All right, we wanted to talk to that chief and he didn't want to talk to us.
so,
I mean, excuse me, where the hell, where was he when I was at the academy training people coming in after the strike in 81? I think he might have been getting out of his pampers about that.
Are you talking about something that just happened recently?
Well, no, it was
Okay,
a couple
well,
of months ago.
yeah.
Okay.
oh, look,
Well, yeah, anyway.
while we're going along here, I just want to say, I want to thank everybody for showing up, taking your time out. Jerry, you've come the farthest, I think. I mean, you've come the shortest distance. You're right down the street. Tony, you're driving. And Jack, all the way from College Station. And Fred, I could throw a rock to his house. So,
And some people do.
yeah.
And you'll hit one garage door.
One more thing I want to mention. You don't hear my dog barking in the background.
Yeah.
Poor Sonny is no longer with us, so she's gone off. And thank you for joining us. Thank you to everybody out there. Fred?
Tune in next week. We'll be here again with another new topic.
Yeah, and if you have any other questions, please email us, make a post on the website. Everybody here reads it. And I'd love to hear your comments and your suggestions. Let us know if we're doing what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong. Y'all
hope
take
somebody
care.
will share this with active controllers.
Yeah. Share it
With
with
active
you.
controllers to give us feedback
And
about
I-
what's actually going on.
Oh, that's-
And you
that's a
pilots
great-
out there, please don't be afraid to chime in. We want to hear some of your stories and feedback. We will actually give you credibility.
I think I tried to share it with active controllers.
Well,
And a lot of them are afraid to even respond because higher ups in the agency will find out.
we
Big
have
Brother
phone
is the
numbers.
one
You
who
can call us. We'll take whatever you tell us to the grave. We won't mention your name. Okay. Y'all be safe out there, and we'll see you next week.
Go Cougs.
Thank you for being with us.
All right, yeah.
That's a cut there, Dan.
Thank you.
We all-
I'm gonna go.